Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Balam balavatamasmi kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshabha ye chaiva sattvika bhavaha rajasastamasascha ye matta ye veti tan vidhi na tvaham teshu te mayi tribhir gunamayair bhavaihi yebhe sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabhijanati mamebhyah paramavyayam Daivi yesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite namam dushkrutino mudhaha prapadyante naradhamaha Maya pahrita jnanaha asuram bhavamashritaha chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukrutinurjuna artho jignasurartharthi jnani cha bharatarshabha tesham jnani nityayuktaha ekabhaktirvishishyate priyo hi jnaninotyartham aham sacha mama priyaha udarah sarvayevaite jnani tvatmaiva me matam asthita sahi yuktatma Mamevanuttamam gatim bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha kamaistaistaihrtajnanaha prapadyante nyadevataha tam tam niyamamasthaya prakritya niyata swaya. Hari Om. Namaskaram to everyone. The last verse we left was on the 16th verse. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukruti Arjuna. O Arjuna, there are Chaturvidha, 4 types of virtuous people who worship me. As we learned, Artharthi, are the people who seek material well-being. They are wanting physical or material benefits in return to their prayers that they offer. The artha are the distressed. They seek emotional solace and mental comfort. Again, they seek in return from their prayers. Jignasu, they approach God with a mere curiosity. And then he says there is the real jnani, the wise, O Bharata Rishabha, O Arjuna. Of the four, as we understand, the fourth is the real seeker who approaches God because he is interested in not seeking anything in return, but rather he is interested in seeking God himself. So there is no utilitarian attitude attached to prayer or worship. As we said, the jnani has a non-utilitarian worship where he is only interested in the self, in becoming one with the self. Such a person has no other interest. And in the subsequent verses, which we'll get right into, he is going to say that how rare is such a person and how dear such a person is to him. All right, so we'll get on with the 17th verse, please. Tesham jnani nitya yuktaha eka bhaktir vishishyate priyo hi jnani notyartham aham sacha mama priyaha. Tesham jnani nitya yuktaha eka bhaktir vishishyate priyo hi jnani notyartham aham sacha mama priyaha. Tesham means of them, referring to the categories mentioned in the previous verse. Of them, the jnani, the wise, who is ever steadfast. Nitya yuktaha. Nitya is ever. Yuktaha is steadfast. Eka bhaktihi, with single pointed devotion, such a person excels. So here he attributes two qualities, which are an attribute of a jnani, which is not of the others. He says because of that, he excels, and he says, I am extremely dear to the jnani, and he is extremely dear to me. I'm very fond of that fellow. Short of saying, I like that fellow. I love him. I have fallen in love with him. That fellow is very sweet. Andamadri. Very, very dear to me. Now, it might suggest that the Guru or the Lord here has a preference of one over the other. It is not that there is a preferential treatment, but it just indicates the kind of closeness, the kind of oneness, the kind of proximity the sadhak would have to the goal. There is a perfect rapport, there's a perfect blend. You love God, God loves you. As simple as that. But the question is, are you really loving God? I don't think so. So it is all Shashikant Garu, you may smile, but yet I know the truth. Huh? So the reality is it's very difficult to have that pure love. All right. So of them, He says the Jnani excels. The Jnani excels because of the two qualities, ever steadfast and single-pointed. Ever steadfast. Now, one of the essential qualities you will find in management jargons and management schools you are taught is to find yourself very steadfast. What is steadfast? Steadfast is to be consistent. Am I right? To be ever committed, to never lose your attention or focus from the job ahead of you or the target ahead of you. So that capacity to keep your actions directed towards the ultimate goal of self-realization is not a joke. It is certainly not a joke. You will have to garner all your effort. You will have to garner all your mental resources. You'll have to ensure you don't get distracted with anything else, but you got to have your focus. It's like, in simple terms, you got to have your blinkers on. You got to have your attention so clearly set on the goal that nothing else would interest you in life. That is when you can truly become steadfast to the goal of realization. And the interesting part in life is the higher the goal, greater are the temptations. The higher the goal, the higher you go in the ladder, the greater are temptations, the greater are the distractions. So let's say you are a manager of a company. What are the possible distractions you would have? You become, you go higher up the ladder. You go top of the organization. You become the chairman or the managing director of an organization. You are the big boss there. Is it not possible to lose your focus for so many things that is possible under your right, and it's under your control? There's so many things that you could do for your own self-benefit, for your own self-interest, and lose your sight that you are there only to work in the interest of the organization. And you may get away with doing many things which perhaps you may push it under the carpet and nobody would know about it. Is it not possible? Very much possible. Which you may not have the luxury when you are a manager or at a managerial level, you don't have to have, because so many eyes watching you. But right up there, very few. You become actually a loner when the more you go higher and higher, you become a loner. And the higher you go, the greater the temptations. It applies even in the spiritual field as well. So in order to have your steadfastness, you must have a profound level of disinterest in anything else and get your thoughts so clearly focused, single pointed. So single pointed is devotion, ever steadfast. Now, why are these two qualities? I hope when he mentions two, they're obviously two different qualities. One is being ever steadfast, another is single pointed devotion. Now, what are these two qualities? What's the difference in these two qualities? Eka bhakti, nitya yuktaha. You should, in fact, take a note of it, that there are two qualities here. What are the two qualities? Okay, to begin with, let me ask Sanjay.
Hari Om. So the two qualities are you referring to being steadfast and single-minded devotion, single-pointed devotion?
Yes. What are these two qualities? What is the difference in the two?
At first, they seem very similar.
Mm.
So to be steadfast is to maintain that constant attention, but not necessarily on. It's not defining what on, which maybe that brings us to the single point of devotion. So maintaining that constant attention on what is it? Is it God or the self or him?
One and the same.
One and the same.
Way.
Yes.
Here we are. He takes off from the previous verse. So he says 4 types of seekers approach me. Of the 4, Jnani excels because he has these 2 qualities. So obviously he's talking about those who approach God, those who seek God, those who seek Brahman. So the goal is very clear. And then he says these are the 2 qualities which will ensure you would excel in your pursuit of getting to truth. So the question is, what are these 2 qualities? Obviously, they're not the same. Give it a thought. You have something, we can always come back to you. Right, Sanjay? Yeah. What are the 2 qualities? Venkatramji, any idea?
Hari Om Guruji.
Hari Om, sir.
Yeah. So the verse talks about being steadfast and then single-minded devotion. So these are the 2 qualities. The way I look at it is, if you are steadfast and if you don't get distracted, automatically the second one should fall in place, which is the single-minded devotion.
You say one is dependent on the other.
Well, I mean, the way I'm actually looking at it is, if what is steadfastness is being very consistent and not getting, distracted. That might lead to also having a single-minded devotion to any task which you take.
I would like to revisit it. Now, just let's go step by step, sir. When you say steadfast, which is being consistent.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me, when does actions become consistent? What is it that's required? It's not necessarily action, any action. Now, I know you are an athlete. It's very difficult to be consistent in that exercise.
So you have to be determined to be consistent, or you have to have the devotion of saying that, yes, I want to do it. Something
Sir, like now again, you're borrowing the word from the second quality. That's not allowed.
Okay.
No, okay. Because he says single pointed devotion is different to determination and consistency and steadfastness. These are all the synonyms we have used in describing steadfastness. The 2 different qualities, the 2 different aspects in a personality which have to go. Now, just to make it easier to get to the point, steadfastness is an attribute of the intellect. Devotion is an aspect or the attribute of the mind. Your actions can never be consistent if the intellect doesn't come into the picture. An intellect, wherever intellect comes into the picture, intellect's job is to conceive, visualize a goal and identify with the goal.
Okay.
So the intellect locks in the goal, and that makes your action consistent, and the mind also cooperates. So if, let's say, your mind doesn't cooperate, isn't it going to make the whole exercise that much more difficult to concentrate, to pursue a target?
Yes.
It's like you don't like to do it.
Yes.
You don't enjoy doing it. Is it possible to expect you to be committed in that activity? For example, let's say you don't like music, but if you are pushed into music Because even though you don't like it, would I be able to consistently practice? Would I be able to be steadfast in it?
No.
I'm dragging myself into the music classes. There is no drive, isn't it? There's no initiative.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay.
You get that? So
Okay.
steadfastness is the intellect, the buddhi. Is an attribute of the strength of the intellect determines how consistent your actions are. And devoted, single pointed is the mind doesn't lose its attention. Why it doesn't lose its attention? Because it is devoted. It's like Hanumanji falling in love with Lord Rama. Thereafter, his mind didn't go anywhere else. See, when your mind likes to do something, it cooperates, isn't it?
Yes.
So imagine if the intellect wants to seek the higher values, but the mind has a fascination and temptation for the lower. Is it possible to be wholehearted in the pursuit of God?
No.
Not possible. So if you want to seek the God, if you want to seek the highest, you must have a very clear goal, convinced that this is the purpose of life. My life must be devoted towards God realization. And to that extent, mind must be dispassionate, disinterested in anything else. So let's say if my mind is craving to amass wealth, to make money, or run behind something in the world, is it possible for me to be committed to this path, sir? Impossible. I would only be looking for opportunities how to make a job, get a better job, get a better opportunity. I'm all the time interested in multiplying my little resources I have in stocks and constantly observing the stock market and then all that. Whatever little I have, you should ask Gemma, is she there? She all the time keeps telling me, Guruji, what is this you're doing? Why don't you do that? Why don't you guys? I said, I don't know, ma. So I completely surrendered to her. She's my guru. She says, ma, you decide what do you think I should do? What do you think I shouldn't do? And there's nothing big to do, but it's just that whatever is there, I should be able to, there's no thought. It's not that I'm trying to impress you all. I am not trying to impress her. It's just mind doesn't go there. Jata hi nahi hai wahan pe. There's a certain disinterest. And this is very, very essential. If your mind, so in order for the mind to be devoted, it should not be preoccupied with the affairs of the world. Now, how do you know your mind is preoccupied or with what it's preoccupied? I'm saying the point is, if you want your mind to be devoted to the God, your mind must not be preoccupied. The question is, how do you know if your mind is preoccupied or with what it's preoccupied? All the time your mind is preoccupied.
But I have a small distinct, Guruji.
Yes, sir.
In some way, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to establish a relationship which probably might not be existing. Individuals who have a very strong intellect probably will also have their mind falling in line. But prima facie, if I don't have a very good high intellect, my mind will always be wavering and all. So there is some relationship here between an intellect and mind too. I mean, if you are a man of high intellect, obviously your mind will also start falling in line largely.
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Just because you have a strong intellect doesn't mean your mind has to obey. So a person who has a strong intellect, he uses his intellect to bring his mind under his control.
Yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. So mind will be in control.
No, because intellect is controlling.
Yeah.
But let's say a person has got a very weak intellect.
Obviously, the mind will be wavering.
No. A mind is let's say mind is fascinated with something. The mind itself will go in the direction. You don't have to control it.
Oh,
So the problem is when the mind is not cooperating. Let's say if the mind cooperates with in doing something, you don't have to worry of it.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
But ideal, he's talking of an ideal state here where the intellect is committed, the mind also cooperates.
Fall in
Then
line.
you will really excel.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the point. All right. Okay. For such a person, I am extremely dear to him. Single pointed devotion. There is no other thought. There is no other interest. Every aspect of your personality is as an oblation. Every aspect of your action or your personality is an offering to the Lord. So when your head and heart are tuned in, you're well and truly on the path. Well and truly. It is not easy to get into this ideal state. That's the point we're making. Even in this classroom for an hour and a quarter, how many of you can tell me that your mind doesn't leave the boundaries of this class? Raise your hand. Even for a minute, the mind doesn't think of anything other than this 1 hour, 15 minutes. Not for a second, not for a minute. There you go. For an hour, you're not able to keep your mind. For your lifetime, you got to keep your mind not distracted by anything else but the goal of realization. It's not a joke. That's what I'm saying. It's not easy. Not easy. Impossible, almost impossible. But he sounds it very possible, plausible. But it is possible. So I don't know to whom I'm talking, because nobody has said I'm with you whole 1 hour 15 minutes. So that means most of the time, most of you are never in the class. Forget those who are not seen. Those who are seen also not in the class. That's very dejecting as far as a guru or a teacher is concerned. Very dejecting. So you have dampened my spirits. Reddy Garu.
Pranam Guruji.
Yes, sir. Namaskar.
Your question is really piercing the hearts, so definitely there is no answers from the people. So I just would like to have one small clarification, Guru. On the statement which you made that in the management analogy, that as you grow higher and lead to the top positions, you have the more distractions coming across. But you also made in a statement, if I rightly understood, that in the spiritual path also, you keep evolving to the higher goal. I mean to say the distractions also going to be the higher. Other way around, I thought of it saying that the more you evolve, you get disconnected with the attachments, you get rid of these desires, to be more peaceful and single pointed focus to the devotion. But how is that? I could not able to get you in the spiritual path, particularly when you evolve higher goals, you will get more distracted. Am I understood that statement?
Very, very clear. Yes, yes. I understand you're quoting what I've said. Right. Now, in the spiritual path, as you know what the fundamental principle of spirituality is, where once you go to the higher, the lower comes to you, right? As you evolve into the higher, the lower comes to you. So as you try and reach the higher spiritual goals, you will get name, you will get following, you will get respect, you will get an audience, you will get students, people will put up a facility, an ashram. There will be a big creation which didn't exist. Invariably, you will start developing an attachment to all of them, which didn't exist when you didn't evolve. As you keep evolving, things will come to you. As you grow higher and higher, you will start enjoying the very process of the evolution itself. You will develop an attachment to the very path itself, which is the karma bhakti jnanam. So you got to be very careful that, oh yes, there will be name, there will be following, there will be devotion, there will be students, there will be name, everything will come your way. But I must understand these are all byproducts of me being spiritual. I'm not interested in that. I should not be interested in that. So if there is enough insight and preparation in you in advance, when they come your way, you will say, yes, I understand this is a byproduct, but I should not get carried away with that. I should be very clear in my focus of my goal, which is to get to the truth. So I must maintain a certain amount of objectivity, not get involved and carried away. Exactly the same thing happens in the material field. Now I'm actually, if Ramji wouldn't mind me quoting him, Ramji, the conversation we had while we were driving back yesterday, very inspiring episode which Ramji had shared. Maybe I can request Ramji to share that experience, 2 experiences you shared, sir, if I'm not wrong.
Namaste, Guruji.
Namaskar,
You're referring to the car and air travel, is it?
Yes.
Okay. No, I was talking about when I became the managing director of Cyanamide in 1998. It was in Bombay, and as the MD of an American company, I was eligible to have a Mercedes car. And so the Mercedes salesman came to sell a car to me. To me means to my company. So I had a lot of discussion with him about the safety. I asked him why Diana died in a Mercedes accident if it is so safe. And then he gave me some reasons why in Diana's car there were 4 people, but 3 died who didn't wear their seat belts, and the one who was wearing the seat belt survived. So that is the reason he gave me. But I was using that conversation more to, avoid buying the car. So that is one, and I will tell you why. And then secondly, when I was, after I came to Hyderabad in the seed industry, I was working for an American company as the managing director. And I was eligible to travel first class. I used to go to US every month, every quarter. And I was eligible to travel first class in the flight. And I always booked myself only in business class, not in first class. And when I was sitting in the airport, my boss used to call me from US. So are you booked in first class or business class? So I used to tell him I'm in business. He used to say, right now, go and change it to first class. So I used to say, why? What a waste of money, Between business class and first class, the difference is that the girl will pay more attention to you. She will give you a little more wine. She will give you a little more food. But beyond that, what is there? Of course, the bed is slightly better, but it is so much of waste of money. So both the Mercedes car and the first class travel, I shunned, not because I didn't like them, but because I felt that they were waste of money. And I could not see myself enjoying those things at that stage of life or at that age. And I never took them actually. So that's what I was briefing Guruji yesterday.
Absolutely. This is what I heard from him word to word. And this is, Reddy Garu, this is in the context as I'm saying. It's very easy to take it. It's very easy to, it's not easy to do what he did, which is, I'm sure, one who has that level of commitment, integrity to work, it's being offered. It's not that he's trying to violate it. In fact, he's being offered in a platter. He said, no, thank you. My focus is in the interest of the organization. I believe I could save the resources for the organization. than pampering myself with a little bit extra comfort and convenience. This is what I mean. Vis-a-vis, where is a point where people go out of the way to get themselves?
Yeah. I will also give you an example of that, Guruji.
Yes, sir.
That
Please.
I know of a managing director.
I don't have much experience there. Please.
No, I know the managing director of a company in Bombay who is from Calcutta, and he used to work for an Italian company, and he used to go to Calcutta every quarter. His people were there. Of course, business was also there, and he used to take his wife with him, both traveling in business class, and he used to charge the company for both the tickets. Finally, the Italians found out and fired him. He lost his job. Not because it's a big expenditure, but it is a matter of principle that how you misuse your official positions, and where he was not eligible for it. I was eligible for it, I didn't use it, but he was not eligible for it and he was using it. So these are very contrasting things that can happen in the corporate world.
Yeah. A lot worse things happen, sir.
I know. These are very minor things I have quoted.
You're being very, very kind to the industry. No. So, Rediger, I don't have to further expand on that, but the same thing is very much in a different degree. It happens here in this field as well. That's what I was saying. See, so being in this field, I know what it is. Sir, could you please? I think you're.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, there could be a disturbance coming across. Some neighbor construction work is going on. Here, you mentioned that in a spiritual path, like you have been currently, I take as an example, as you keep growing, the fame, name, the challenges of you being an example and you being a role model to the people, also do follow in the spiritual path. I think that's what I could able to see. That may create a stress, that may create a challenge to the people to overcome those worldly affairs which are coming across. But if somebody is doing that spirituality or to a self-development, self-improvement, and not to get into a profession of a spiritual path, so will it be applicable? What we're talking about, the distractions going to impact them as they evolve higher?
So even as you try to develop yourself, this will come. The fact that you have reached a higher level, it will come. Okay. But that is where you should not lose focus. That's the point we're making. If you don't evolve, you will not get that respect, name, following, etc. will not come your way. The fact that it's coming or it has come is because of a certain cadre. You're a certain level in the spiritual field. So to put your head down and say, no, I'll have nothing to do with it. My purpose, I'm in this path to get to the goal of realization, and that constant reminder. And to that extent, the mind must not be fascinated or get lost or preoccupied with other aspects as much as possible. If you get to the main track, the main path, there's a greater chance you will not get lost.
Okay. Got that.
Sir, you know, I'll have to mute you, sir. If you have anything, please. Yeah, please. You know, the stories we hear when the great rishis used to meditate, you know, to ruin their penance. You know, Lord Indra used to send damsels from the heavens. Have you not heard of these stories and parables? So the most beautiful, most charming lady from the heavens is sent, is like Miss Universe and Miss World coming to you of not 1950, 2021. And Miss World, Miss 50, 1950, she'll be a lady walking in a walking stick. Who bothers? The latest 2020, 2021, a group of bunch of these winners and contestants are sent. And the story goes of a rishi. The Shastras talk of it so greatly, you know. So there was a story of this rishi meditating. And he was so lost and engrossed in that tapas he was doing. And the ladies, the damsel who came from the heavens should sent only with the purpose to destroy the tapas. So the Rishi heard some noise. He didn't open his eyes. He was still carrying on with his meditation. The lady kept coming close, and the sound obviously she was too close for his comfort. And he opened his eyes, and that lady was very near to him. And the story goes that he obviously hadn't had a shower or anything, so it's all covered with dust. So he took his hand on his thigh, he took a little bit dust and he threw at her. You get what I'm saying? He took a little bit of dirt from his body and he threw at her. And right from the dirt was another damsel far, far more beautiful than the lady from the heavens was created. And instantly the lady from the heavens sought deep, deep apologies for disrupting his sadhana, and she disappeared. So what that means, that damsel was as good as dirt for him. It didn't make any sense to him. I remember having a conversation with someone many years ago. He was in Singapore and he was talking of he going with a group of people from his company to Hong Kong, going from Singapore to Hong Kong. And they all were at one of the top star hotels and things. And the party with the business dealings, they had a dinner that evening. And after the dinner, he was telling me, suddenly 10 young ladies walked into the room, the private dining area, and said, choose whom you want for the evening. It was all given. And this person, who was a student of mine, he was telling me how life is, whether you fall for it or not. So I'm talking one of a great rishi meditating somewhere in the woods where Indra sent. In the corporate industry, your business partner will send. Same distraction, same temptations, the goals are different. Here, this person is only interested in God realization. There, you're only interested in the welfare of your organization. Goals are different, temptations are the same. But the higher you go, the greater will be the temptation. What you will be challenged and tested is, are you very certain where you want to get to go? You want to get to the truth, you must have this ever steadfast, the quality of the intellect, got to be devoted, the quality of the mind. I'm glad, there are people from the industry, you all know what I'm talking about. And I constantly deal with people and they come and share this experience, this information it came as a flash to me. I think this was somebody more than 15 years ago shared this. And I could relate to that person, very sattvic fellow. He said nothing, no nonsense fellow, that fellow. Clarified, sir? Right. Venkatamji.
No, Guruji, I'm just trying to build on what, Ram sir has spoken about. And this is more my experience with him. Not many of you would be knowing that I was actually reporting to him when he was a global CEO of Vedanta. I was a business head for Asia and Africa. And I hold him in high esteem because of this. So the business class actually became economy class after he gave first class and business class. So we were traveling and we were transiting from Dubai. And this is something which I tell to many people whom I know, basically talking about how, what we call him actually, Kaundinya in the industry, Kaundinya service. So we were transiting from Dubai to Hyderabad. We came from a long flight. I think it was Africa or something. And then, it was an economy class because obviously business goes through cycles. And those were the times when, we were having some. So he is a tall man, far taller than me. So we could not, I got an emergency exit and he got a middle seat in an economy class in Emirates. You can see those large flights. If you get a middle seat somewhere, you are kind of crazy. So I told him, sir, why don't you take, because you are a tall guy, you take the emergency one. I am okay. I can. He said, no, nothing doing, because you got it. You please enjoy that emergency seat, and then I would be where I have got my seat. And a couple of times I pleaded, but he said, no, I would not. You please. So basically talking about him, how, the business became economy and how he holds some of these things. And there are some, I don't know whether he remembers it or not, but these are some memories which I still hold it. So I'm just trying to build on that. So first business and now economy, and then middle seat in an Emirates, large plane. So yeah, so that is how he is as a person. So yeah, I was fortunate to work with him. I still hold him in high esteem. He's kind of my mentor, at least in the corporate side. I look up to him always. So these are examples which you will learn from your supervisors on how to demonstrate in the world. Like we are learning something from you, we learn something from our bosses. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you.
No. I'm glad. What little I have known of him, it's certainly a lot to learn, and how we have said that the principles don't change. It's just that the direction changes. The principle that apply, you find success in the material field, the same principles will employ for the success in the spiritual field. It's just that whether you got in you to reach, to even conceive a spiritual goal or a lofty goal. All right. Gayatrima, you said, how do we know? Is that question still standing, Gayatrima? Other question, no?
You just posed this question, then somebody this thing, how do we know in which our mind is occupied? Like,
how do we know where is our mind preoccupied? Preoccupied.
Because we were talking of steadfastness and devotion. So in which our devotion, where it is our mind is preoccupied, we wanted to discuss that.
How do you know is just by letting the mind to itself. Where does it go? The moment you leave the mind to itself, and if it is naturally gravitated towards something in particular, that is what you have an attachment to, that is what your mind would invariably be preoccupied with. That means you have an undercurrent of desire and attachment towards it. So that's where you would know that I need to be conscious to pull my mind out of those areas. All right, Ma?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah, let's move on. Verse 18, please. Udara sarvaye vaite jnani tvatmaiva me matam asthita sahi yuktatma mamevannuttamam gatim. Udara sarvaye vaite jnani tvatmaiva me matam asthita sahi yuktatma mamevannuttamam gatim. Noble indeed are all these, but he, the jnani, the wise, I deem as verily myself. For steadfast in mind, he is established in me alone as the supreme goal. Uttamam gatim. Uttamam. Uttamam means the highest. Gatim is the goal. So noble indeed are all these. Udaraha sarva eva aite. Udara sarva eva aite. This is the Sanskrit section, which means noble indeed are all these. Whom is he talking about? Thanks, Gayatri Ma. Padmini Ma. Whom are noble indeed are all these? Whom is he talking about?
Those who are steadfast in their effort to reach the goal, and those who are committed to it with a single-pointed devotion.
I don't think so. He says, noble indeed are all these, but he, the jnani, I deem as verily myself. So whom is he referring to? All these.
One who always aims at reaching that goal.
Go back to the 16th verse. The 16th verse, he says, the 4 types of people worship me. So the fact that you approach Brahman or approach God, you fall under the virtuous category. Remember, we learned that, we said that earlier. Those who worship the world of materiality and sensuality are the demoniac. But the people who are worshipping the self are divine. The fact that you have turned this side, the fact that you turn towards the self, you're not worshipping the world. He's talking of those categories of people. You get it? But of those who worship the self, jnani, I deem as verily myself. In simple terms, those who are extroverted, the extroverted are the materialistic and sensual people. Isn't it? The materialistic and the sensual people are extroverted. Am I right?
Yes.
The introverted people are the spiritual seekers. So when he says, noble indeed are all these are referring to the introverted people. What is the life of extroverted person? Since we have mentioned it. Sorry?
He looks for sensual pleasures.
Not just sensual pleasures. What does extrovertedness mean?
The mind is not controlled by the intellect. The mind,
Okay.
Extroverted means it is the mind which is more powerful than the intellect, and that such persons go after their desires to fulfill their desires.
Correct. When your mind is drawn by the desires and the temptations, and which draws you into the outer world, such people are seeking happiness and satisfaction in something external. Right? But the moment you're introverted, you are not drawn outward, you're going inward. That's what we say. Those who seek the self, they're going inward, they're not running behind the outer world. So the fact that you've turned inward, he puts you into the noble category. The ignoble are those who are outward. Now, what's important is you got to find out to what extent are you extroverted, to what extent are you introverted. Because nobody is entirely extroverted, entirely introverted. So you got to go through this exercise. It's a test for yourself. Now, this is an exercise you are being given. Each of you sit tomorrow morning, even if it means it takes a day or two. The first thing in the morning, try to analyze yourself and find out to what extent are you introverted, to what extent are you extroverted. Because to the extent you're introverted, to that extent you can't be extroverted. Because either you go outward or you go inward. You can't go both ways. So if you're 60% extroverted, you're only 40% introverted. If I'm 70% introverted, to that extent, I am not extroverted. Now, maybe we'll give you an idea how to find out to what extent you're introverted, extroverted. How do you find out? Any thoughts, any ideas? Sitaramji, did you want to say something? No, sir, you have to unmute first, please. Yeah.
No, that was referring to the earlier question of who are these virtuous people? In that
Okay.
context.
Right. Right. So how do you know whether you're extroverted or introverted? So if you know yourself, you'll know. If you don't know yourself, you'll be scratching your head. And you've got to be true to yourself. Yeah, ready, Garu.
Guruji, is it a way to identify self, whether we are an extroverted or introverted? Jotting down or listing out what is your sattvic actions, tamasic actions, rasic actions, which you are your vasanas. Is it a way we need to identify how many are falling in which category of extroverted, and is it the way percentages to be drawn in to define their self-personality? Is it gives a clarity or a clue? How are you? Because it's a more of a self-analyzing. Of course, we do quite a lot of objective type answering to the most of understanding the personality in a management way. But here is something we're talking about extrovertedness, introvertedness. Can it be draw the lines considering the vasanas what one possesses?
It is, but then it's a humongous challenge going through the vasanas. But it certainly gives you a direction to start approaching. See, extrovertedness means when your thoughts and attention are driven outward, and you're more prone to action, you're more reactive, you become more impulsive. All those is extrovertedness. But when you're introverted, you are far more contemplative. Your attention is constantly driven to. Right now, sir, are you thinking of anything but yourself? No, isn't it? So when we are with this study, the entire attention is on our own self-transformation, our own purification. So that is being introverted. So in the course of the day, how much time do you have for your own development? How much thoughts go inward to correct your thoughts, change your perceptions, to refine your actions, to examine where your mind is going, what kind of thoughts you're entertaining, what kind of emotions you're entertaining. So that kind of a very alert, conscious, inward awareness. It's an inward awareness. And you can be in the marketplace, but yet you're very introverted. You're not getting excited by all that's happening around you. You're very introverted, calm, measured, controlled, that kind of a thing. Sushmama.
Can you hear me, Guruji?
Yes.
Guruji,
Yes.
what you're saying about percentage and what you in the morning, I notice in myself a change, a lot of change in the last, maybe I can say 5 years. I used to want to go in the evening, go out, meet people, meet friends or family. And I feel now I don't know whether it's my age, but I don't feel that feeling I need to go out and meet people and all. And also I think when I'm sitting by myself, a lot of time my mind is thinking of what we're learning in the Shastras, or what, like yesterday you were talking about in the Ishavasya Upanishad, what you were saying. So those things are rotating in my mind, and I'm not thinking of other things. So I think in my own self, I feel the change is happening. Now, I don't know what percentage, but since you asked, because I have noticed that even when at night when I'm going to bed, I'm again thinking of the same thing: selfless action. What should I undo? How can I get better? And things like that, which I never used to happen to me 3-4 years ago.
Right.
So I feel there is definitely a shift in my own thinking. So whether I'm getting more introverted and not wanting to go out and all, probably, maybe I'm not young also, maybe that you could put it for that also. But there is definitely, my mind is thinking of the Shastras or whatever or like yesterday, someone sent me a video of Swami Ram Sukdas. I read his Gita also. And it was basically on Shlok 66 of the 18th chapter, when Lord says Sharnagati, you come to my Sharnagati, and also how to get rid of your ego. And this was the tape was about almost for an hour. And I listened to that and was so, I felt I wanted to listen to it again and again for my own self.
Right.
So I don't know whether what that indicates, but I thought I could share my thoughts with you.
No, absolutely. In fact, these are clear. This is a sign of clear introversion, where you're very introspective, you're very reflective, you're very much absorbing everything that comes your way, And in fact, in the Gita, I think, if I'm not wrong, either in the 12th or the 13th chapter, when he's talking of a quality of a devotee, he says, as you spiritually evolve and become introverted, he says, you will have a distaste for crowd, he says.
Distaste for what?
Crowd. You don't want to be in amidst people. Not that you dislike people, but you choose to be by yourself. You choose to be a loner.
You're not looking for company all the time that you want.
See, even being in someone's company takes you outward, isn't it? But just by yourself.
Unless you are with like-minded people.
Even like-minded people, you're still going outward.
But still,
I'm with so many like-minded, lovely people like you all. But still, I'm this extroverted.
But Uruji, there is a little difference. Like before, one enjoyed meeting different type of people. Now I feel I like to be with people who are on similar lines. I mean, I don't know what to talk to them about, because now I'm not interested in other things. So I'm not interested in jewelry. I'm not interested in shopping. I'm not interested. Because my interests have changed. So I like to be with people who are like, I belong to Atma Trust. So those are also spiritual type people. So I like to be with them. Those are my friends now, because we have something in common to talk about.
Right. I completely can relate to you, and what you're saying is very much in line to what we are talking about, being introverted, but that a capacity where you don't need anything external, like we see people constantly, they're with their mobiles, or constantly trying to browse something in the social media, because they can't keep their mind quiet, and mind is not quiet without doing that. They become restless. That's another test to see how quiet is your mind if it is left to itself. You get it, Ma?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. A question, Venkatramji, you want to explain yourself, or is it all explained in that what you have drafted, sir?
No, I am having a small conflict. Not that what you are saying, I'm clear. In a corporate world, normally, and we have seen most of these HR inventories when you go through it and all, there is a normal encouragement that you should be extrovert, and then you should speak out, and then you should, engage with people and all. So my small, clarification here is, one can still be introverted. I'm getting what you are saying, even in a corporate world, but still can't be completely aloof, because we also have to discharge our duties and obligations as an employee and also in our personal life. So is this introvertness very distinct from what we are talking about when we are wanting to achieve the superior, or can it be somewhere, looked at it from both the sides? Many feedbacks keep coming to people saying that, oh, you are very introvert, but then you should open up. Not for me, I'm saying generally. And most of these HR inventories, when you go through it, they also, kind of classify your personality, whether you are an introvert or an extrovert and things like that. So there is a small, confusion in my mind.
See, introvertedness gives you an opportunity to be very clear. You're very rational. It gives you an opportunity to be very sound in your actions, because that's such clarity you operate from, and especially when you are a decision maker. Let's say a challenge comes to you, you can't be reactive. You got to take every department's comments, take every feedback and process it, and yet be so objective and not get carried away, and yet give the right advice in the interest of the larger organization. You can't be extroverted for that.
Okay.
So your actions are more profound, impactful if you're introverted. And it is, in fact, the leaders of organization, they are more, they are at the helm of affairs, where they're giving clarity and direction to the team to execute it. So the leaders of organizations or leaders of industries are thinkers.
Okay.
And in order to think clearly, you got to be introverted. So spiritual introvertedness lends a charm to become a successful leader in the corporate world. And not every leader is out there with this mindset. Therefore, they are vulnerable, they become susceptible, they go through the fluctuations, they're affected, they are tossed in the happenings. An introverted person is very mature. It's not a question of being soft-spoken or you speak less. That is not sign of introvertedness, please. That is wrong. That's a certain mannerisms. We're not talking of mannerisms. We're talking of a mental state of processing things, which a leader should have, isn't it, sir? You being a leader of industry, you'll understand that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So we are talking of that state of mind. It's not of a mannerisms.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. Right. Sanjay, what is it you're clarifying, sir?
It's a very it's a very personal question, so it might not be the correct context. But I was always taught that we have to attach our chitta to God. But over the last couple of weeks, I'm understanding it's more we attach our buddhi, our intellect, to God, and then that guides us. That will help us direct our mind in the right direction. It sets our focus. So I just want to understand, is this idea of chit actually relevant in this context? Is that just the wrong word to use, or am I misunderstanding something about that word? So it's just a personal question about what I've been told in the past.
What was your understanding of chitta?
See, for me, it's always confused me, because my understanding of chit has always been memory, the memory aspect of our mind. But maybe I'm incorrect there as well. I've always understood, but I've always been, in my reading, I've understood chit to be the memory. So that's why I've always been confused about how do we attach our memory to God? How does that set our direction? So it's just a very personal confusion that I'm just trying to clear up, so I don't use the wrong words in the future.
See, the chitta usually is used in the context of defining what is your subtle body. Subtle body constitutes of mind, manaha, buddhi, the intellect, ahankar, ego, and chitta, which is conditioned consciousness. I repeat. So the complete definition of subtle body is mano, mind, buddhi, the intellect, ahankar, the ego, and chitta, which is conditioned consciousness. So chitta can be referred to the conditioned consciousness, which is the individuality itself, which is separated from the pure consciousness. So it is a very poetic term that is used, but not directly used in any of the application of this philosophy. So I can't say, get your chitta united to the self. It's a very poetic way of saying, But the Shastras, when they say, they will not say, get your chitta connected to the self. Like in the previous verse, he said, you got to engage your head and heart, a quality of the buddhi and the quality of the mind. So they often use this language. So the word chitta is not often used in sense of sadhana, but it's a technical term used to define what your subtle body is. Mano, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. This is the complete definition of a subtle body. Does that clarify, Sanjay?
Absolutely clarifies.
All right, great. All right, good. Yeah, Murliji?
Hariom Guruji.
Hariom, sir.
In this verse, can I understand that comparing to verse number 17, God is telling that who is steadfast, who is having steadfastness and devoted to me, becomes the self himself, he is the God. Is it what he's trying to tell in 18?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He says, I deem as verily myself. I deem as verily myself. Now, there's a matter of time he becomes one with me.
Okay.
And how does he become one with me? Because of your, as you rightly said, because of his steadfastness. Again, in fact, he repeats the same quality again here. Because he is steadfast, he invariably becomes me. So it's like the river that constantly keeps moving with steadfastness. The steadfast pursuit with which a river constantly flows, the purpose is to meet the ocean, isn't it?
Right.
And if it has that steadfastness in it, it merges with the ocean, it becomes the ocean. It becomes the ocean where it loses its individuality.
Okay. So steadfastness includes surrender, self-surrender also, including surrender.
See, these are all again qualities which can obviously be mentioned, but here he doesn't talk of it in this context,
Okay.
See, surrender, where do you surrender?
Surrender
you don't surrender when you know something for sure, would you?
Yes.
Do you surrender? How do you brush your teeth?
No.
But when you go to a dentist, he says, looks like you're brushing wrongly. Oh, is it, doctor? How do you say? No, you see, all your gums are all, there's a considerable damage, rupture you're doing. You should not do it. Oh, doctor, can you please tell me how do I brush? I think you should go for a soft brush, not for a hard brush. Go for a soft brush, and then he'll say, you got to use this and use that and do this. Don't put pressure here. Oh, okay, thanks, doctor. You're surrendering in areas of ignorance. You did not know that you were rupturing your gums and your teeth. There you surrender. But if your wife says, you're not brushing properly, you say, I know, don't tell me, for 60 years I've been brushing teeth. Now you're telling me how to brush my teeth? You will say, you don't surrender to your wife, would you? But you, if a dentist says, you will almost prostrate to him. Thank you, doctor, for telling me how to brush my teeth, because I want to keep my teeth intact. Isn't it, sir?
Yes, correct.
Adhe madri, surrender only happens in areas of ignorance. Since we don't know the path to the truth, we always surrender to the higher knowledge to guide us. So surrender almost becomes a backdrop to the spiritual path. Like you see, there's a backdrop behind me, there's a banner. Every time you see me, there's a banner. So surrender is a backdrop of your any effort in the spiritual field, because you're doing something in a field which you do not know. So you surrender to the knowledge, you surrender to a guru, you surrender to those who are wise around you to help you in the journey. So it's almost an understood quality, which is like a backdrop, like a banner, a spiritual banner.
Right.
Okay, sir. But here he's emphasizing the quality of steadfastness, which is intellect, quality of being devoted, which is the quality of the mind.
Right.
We can always inter-exchange surrender to devotion. I know where you're coming from, but I'm just trying to be very clear to the point what the text is saying. Okay, sir?
Okay, thank you.
All right, most welcome, sir. Right. Soumyama, as I've already mentioned, she's asking what are the characteristics, features of an introverted person in general. I also talked in general only, no? Never mind. Can somebody summarize what I've said? My memory is very poor. Ushama, what did we say?
Namaste, Guruji.
Yes,
introvertedness gives you a clarity of mind and not being reactive, profound and matured in nature.
Anything more?
You can be even in a marketplace or in the world, but these are the qualities which makes you more introvert.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma. Thank you. Yes, Soumyama, Solongo. No, ma. We can't hear you. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. If you could just type what you want to convey, ma, please. No, give it a try once again. Please try speaking.
Am I audible?
Yeah, now you're audible. Yes, ma.
An introvert person who can steadiness and devotion. People can take their long.
No, we can't hear you, ma. No, we can't hear you.
Okay, can you
Ma, you don't bring the phone near to you. Can you bring that microphone which is with your wire, you know, where your earpod wire is there? There is a microphone. Can you bring that closer to your mouth, please? Ah, there, yeah.
What my doubt is, introvert person, introverted people, they have steadiness and emotional.
No, I would request you to just type it, even though you are speaking, but it is not clear. We have not got at what you're saying. Okay, ma. Can you just type it out? We'll wait for you to capture your question. Yes, rightly said that an introverted person is far more rational. He becomes contemplative. As I said, The two qualities I was referring to, one is the distaste for crowd, and you resort to a solitary place. These are the two qualities he says in the Gita. You would resort to a solitary place. You choose to be a loner. Not a distaste for crowd, both indicating. So you find yourself very secure being introverted, very secure being on your own. But the moment you're insecure, you seek company. So that's a sign of extrovertedness. Yes, in fact, introverted person, Samyama, would not necessarily guarantee that he's steadfast. You need to, as he says in this verse, that noble indeed are these people. So he's referring to those who are introverted people. They're all spiritually inclined, but not necessarily steadfast. So you have to cultivate this quality of steadfastness and devotion as well. Nothing is a guarantee. Okay. Now, in the Shastras, they talk about the 4 stages of becoming the self. I think we've just short the time, and we'll come back. I'll come back and mention these 4 stages of getting closer to the self, because he talks about the seeker or the jnani becoming the self. There are 4 stages. I'll come back and explain that. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.